In this episode of Akram's Ideas, I'm going to share with you some of the cool things I picked up at the Vintage Tulsa Show. So stay tuned! Hello and welcome. I'm Akram Burris. And this is Akram's Ideas, bringing creative and crazy ideas to life. If you've read my blog, you'll know that I love all things vintage. In fact, I've been writing a series of posts called Vintage Finds, where I share with readers some of the cool vintage items I picked out throughout the month, kind of a haul post if you'll have it. So I was really excited when I heard about the Vintage Tulsa Show. I came across them on Facebook, and apparently this twice-a-year event takes place at the Tulsa Fairgrounds. A few weekends ago, me and my husband had the opportunity to go to the Vintage Tulsa Show. And I thought, instead of just sharing with you guys a few photos, I'd give you sort of a video montage of the events, so that you could get a full experience. The link to the Vintage Tulsa Montage Show is in the comments below. There were a ton of amazing things at the Vintage Tulsa Show. Unfortunately, most of it was out of my price range, especially since a lot of the items there were larger furniture type items, which wouldn't even fit in my small apartment currently. However, I did manage to find a few items which I always look for when I go to places, and that is a bundle of vintage patterns. Yes, I got a whole slew of vintage patterns. They're mainly from the 50s and 40s. Now, the Simplicity patterns were priced reasonably. Simplicity patterns, I come across them quite frequently. Simplicity seems to be the pattern manufacturer of choice for vintage patterns, so I come across them a whole lot, and I was really excited. They were good priced, sort of reasonably priced for a show of that nature. Some of the other ones, they were a little pricey in comparison to what I normally pay for patterns, but these were a pair of, or a set of Buttrick patterns. Now, Buttrick patterns, I don't have a whole lot of vintage Buttrick patterns. In fact, these here are from the 1940s, and I was really excited to get those. They have a lot of detail on the pattern, and I'm just really excited to have the opportunity to come across those. At another vendor's booth, those all came from the same vendor, but at another vendor's booth I came across this single Vogue 50s pattern. It has a very nice look to it and everything. I'm excited to find these patterns. However, in most cases when I come across patterns, they're not actually my size. So there is a lot of grading and pattern alterations that have to take place in order for me to actually fit the pattern, which is probably why I don't sew the patterns quite frequently. However, I was really excited because this Simplicity dress here, it's somewhat similar to the cherry dress that I made last spring, but this particular dress is in my size. So I'm definitely going to make this. It's going to be one of my vintage pledge patterns this year. And if you haven't heard about the Vintage Pledge, please go to my blog, read all about it. It is something that the vintage sewing community is a part of, where we pledge to sew vintage patterns throughout the year. And I'll put the link in the comments below where you can learn more about the Vintage Pledge if you're interested in that. So that's a lot of fun to participate in, and I love finding vintage patterns. Now, the other thing that I love is vintage magazines, and I've come across a lot of them here in the last few months or so, and I was super excited when I came across a set of 5 Women's World's vintage magazines. These magazines come from the 1930s. So I've got 1931, June and August, 1932, June and July, and then 1933, April. Not only do these magazines, I mean, they're in really great condition considering their age. The front cover is a little loose, so as you turn the pages, you have to be kind of careful. But the artwork, the cover artwork on each of these is just beautiful. All the magazines are fully intact, so I was super excited about that. There are some great ads. There are especially some ads for patterns from the 30s. They make a great addition to the magazine, and then just some weird articles. In fact, there's an article in one of the magazines for taking care of your dandruff with Listerine. Yes, the mouthwash. It was very interesting to read articles like that. And there were lots of recipes that were in the magazine that were really interesting and cool, and I can't wait to try some of those out. I think it'll be kind of fun experience to try some recipes from the 1930s. So these were an amazing find. I haven't decided yet what I'm going to do. The artwork is so lovely. I think I'm going to frame the magazines, but I might actually scan some of the interior articles to frame as well. I hate to take magazines and books apart. I just can't do it. So I think I'll just scan some of the interior pages, frame those, and then frame the magazines as a whole and hang them up, because they are just lovely works of graphic art there. Now, that is pretty much everything that I came across at the Vintage Tulsa Show. Like I said, there were tons of amazing things that I saw, especially in the montage. There were lots of hats and dresses. Those hair combs were exquisite, and there was this butterfly belt buckle, amazing. Unfortunately, again, they were out of my price range. However, those are not the only February vintage finds that I've come across. Me and my husband actually took a day trip to Joplin a few weeks ago, and if you've never been to Joplin, Missouri, they have a wide range of some amazing antique stores in the area, and so I always enjoy going there. And one of the items that I came across was this dress, and you can see I just love this dress. It is not actually vintage by any means. It's actually an Isaac Marazza dress from Target, and I don't actually remember ever seeing it in Target. Maybe it was a short run, maybe it wasn't very popular, but it's got these beautiful pleats and this sort of vintage floral pattern to it, and it was $6, and I was like, I'm buying it, I'm taking it home. It fit perfectly, which was amazing. And again, even though it's not true vintage, it is very vintage inspired. And I will tell you, ever since I've gotten this dress and worn it, I get compliments all the time. It's one of my new favorite springtime dresses. Another item that I picked up in Joplin was this framed theatrical poster of the play Oklahoma. And if you have been to my blog, you know that I'm an Okie girl. Yes, I am from Oklahoma. And growing up in Oklahoma, like, you live the play. In grade school, we have to learn the song Oklahoma. Everybody watches the play Oklahoma. Like, it's like a requirement. Like, it's just part of growing up in Oklahoma. And so when I saw this in Joplin, of all places, I was like, this is going home with me, it's going on my wall. And I just, not only is the theme, Oklahoma theme, is kind of fun for me, but the artwork. The artwork is amazing. The artwork was done by Hilary Knight in 1979 for the Palace Theater, apparently on Broadway. So this particular rendition, it actually starred Lawrence Guttard and Kristen Andreas. But I love the artwork. I love the flat illustration. I love the colors. just the flow of the artwork, being in graphic design for so many years, this has so many great characteristics of design and couldn't resist it, so I took it home. It's actually hanging with a bunch of other vintage prints that I have. So this was another amazing find. So that's about it as far as the vintage finds that I've come across for the month of February. Please let me know in the comments below if you've enjoyed this episode and would like to see more vintage find / haul episodes of Akram's Ideas. To read previous vintage find posts, don't forget to visit Akram's Ideas blog, and don't forget to follow Akram's Ideas on social media or subscribe to Akram's Ideas channel. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and look forward to seeing you guys again. You're watching Akram's Ideas, bringing creative and crazy ideas to life.